For 7 years, Nixon veterans in the Bush administration have sought to avenge Nixon, to transcend the parameters of presidential power to which he aspired. Nixon, even after his fall, telling an interviewer, when the president does it, that means it is not illegal. Tonight, our fourth story, Congress fights back. It started with 7 U.S. attorneys fired, it appeared, for political reasons. Congress carried out its constitutional duty to investigate, but both Harriet Miers, the former White House counsel, and the current White House Chief of Staff, Josh Bolton, claim they are above the law. They refused to comply with the subpoenas. The House charged each with criminal contempt. Mr. Bush's protector, Attorney General Michael Mukasey, refused to enforce the law, refused to prosecute either Miers or Bolton. So yesterday, the House filed a civil contempt lawsuit against the pair. The motion would serve future students of history well. Quote, "Not since the days of Watergate have the Congress and the federal courts been confronted with such an expansive view of executive privilege as the one asserted by the current presidential administration." Quote, Harriet Miers, a private citizen and former counsel to the president, asserted that a president's mere request that she not even appear to testify before and produce documents to the committee is enough to bestow absolute immunity upon her from a validly issued congressional subpoena. Quote, Joshua Bolton contended that as White House Chief of Staff, he is absolutely immune from congressional process and thus is not required to comply in any manner with a committee subpoena for documents. These extraordinary and wholly unsupportable claims flout established law and suggest a return to the long-since discredited executive mantra of, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal. Let's get a unique perspective on this from the White House counsel during the early part of the Nixon administration, John Dean, author, of course, of Worse Than Watergate, The Secret Presidency of George W. Bush, and most recently, Broken Government. As always, John, great thanks for your time tonight.
Good evening, Keith.
With Mukasey refusing to enforce the law, how does the civil suit unfold? I mean, President Clinton himself had to testify in the lawsuit against him. What would the end game in this one be?
Well, the Clinton situation is a little different because it related to, the civil suit related to behavior before he became president, so it wasn't in his official capacity. But we're really treading some new ground here where you have an attorney general who won't enforce a law that's already on the books, and they're trying to get a civil remedy to get some enforcement. So the interesting thing of this, and maybe the unfortunate thing of this, is it's before a judge, a new Bush II appointee who's very pro-president and executive branch. So I'm not so sure how far this will go in the lower court. I do think, however, in the long run, if this goes all the way to the Supreme Court, the White House could lose.
And what happens were a Democrat to be elected this year? Could his or her attorney general say, give me that subpoena, I will enforce the hell out of it?
Absolutely, and it would be very nice if one of the leading candidates, there are now two of them on the Democratic side, were to declare, indeed, that's exactly their position, that they would instruct their Attorney General that we're not going to tolerate this kind of behavior, and when there's a statute that says we're supposed to take a contempt citation from the Congress to a grand jury, we're going to do it. This would be a change in the Reagan-Bush law, but it certainly is the way the Congress contemplated it, and we ought to hope they do it.
Would Senator Obama or Senator Clinton or anybody else running for president be hesitant to do that because of fears that they might be restricting their own presidency in some way that you and I could not conceive of here?
That's the typical argument. That's what the counsel is going to tell them. But it may or may not be appropriate in this situation. We're dealing with something that is really ugly here, is firing of U.S. attorneys, politicization of the Department of Justice, and I don't think they want that taint. So they might want to clean this issue up.
President Bush today, in just a startling thing that did not simply stop traffic, told ABC News that he was aware of what they reported last night, or the night before, that his top officials, that Vice President Cheney and others, most of the cabinet, had met repeatedly in the White House to approve various methods of torture. Obviously, he doesn't call it torture. Is either the Democratic Congress or that hypothetical Democratic president obliged to finally answer the question, in what ways has the president broken the law and what accountability does the law demand? Because obviously nothing is going to happen before the election, correct?
Well, that truly was a jaw-dropper interview he gave, where he really appears to be trying to set it up as a ticking bomb situation, the equivalent of it was so urgent that they invoked torture because they didn't know what was going to happen next. So that's been the continued groundwork for this. But, you know, Keith, when they amended the Military Commissions Act to try to remove the threat of war crimes and war crime punishment, there's still an awful lot on the books These people do have exposure, and a new administration could well bring this thing to an end, at least by revealing what happened. I don't wish anybody to have to be prosecuted, but if people indeed have gone beyond just national security and done this for political reasons, then indeed we're right smack into the same sort of Watergate things that did get prosecuted.
Did we just find out in the last 7 years why Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon was a bad idea?
Well, we found out that it does indeed make issues disappear, and maybe it's for history only to judge these, but we still don't have the facts, and that's what we've got to hope. We did have the facts when Nixon was pardoned.
John Dean, among everything else, co-author now of the very soon-to-be-released biography of Barry Goldwater, Pure Goldwater. Great thanks, John, as always.
Thank you.